because I'm a blues man, but I'm a good man. Understand?
Hello and welcome to the Jim Canfield episode of the Two Tones for 2019. Tony de Bolfo, how the hell are you?
Greetings, Tone. Lovely to be back. It's been a long, hot summer, and there's a decided air of anticipation leading into the big one at the G this Thursday night.
We are very much looking forward to that. It is season 29, as I said, of the Two Tones, the Jim Canfield episode. Apologies for that. We'll get to that in a moment. There have been many changes at the Two Tones. We've lost people. We've put people on. Just before we get underway, Tone, do you want to introduce some of the new personnel that we have here at the podcast?
I do indeed, Tone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Christian Filippo to the microphone. Christian, of course, would be known to a lot of devotees of the Northern Blues with his work to date. He's joined the big show.
This is the big league.
This is the big one, and not before time either, Christian. It's embarrassing to admit this, Tony, but in another life, when Christian was at Parade College and I was working out there for the old Paradians, I can remember him popping into the office seeking tips on how to write and you know, any news-related events. And I think I was very polite to you, Christian, because I always felt you've got to be polite because one of these days you might be working for them.
Well,
and that's how it is. Christian's now alongside in the media department with Will Batulis, who's another Paradian. So we do hunt in packs. So great to have you here, Christian. And, of course, Damon Jackman working the panel. Damon saw the light, left Collingwood, came to Carlton.
Excellent.
Magnificent to have you aboard, Damon. And it's going to be a lot of fun this year, Tone, I dare say.
It's going to be a huge year. We have a new lineup on the podcast. There's brand new segments. Very excited about this. Just a quick thank you to Lucy Jamison for producing us last year. She has moved on to bigger and better things. She's an absolute superstar. We wish her very well. But I tell you, there's just too much to do on this program. There's too many big egos to handle. That's the problem. And the other thing for 2019, Tony, is we have a sponsor. And two quality hams have finally landed some corporate sponsorship from the Barkly Smokehouse. The
Barkly Smokehouse, Tony, and I'm absolutely rapt to say that they're in the neighbourhood. Head office is in Mansfield, and Mansfield Street, Thornbury, I should say, or Northcote. And I would just about get a waft of ham across the way because I live very close to that magnificent ham emporium. So we're rapt that Barkly Smokehouse is on. The owner is a front and centre for the Carltonians, a great Carlton man, and that's what you want. You want a local link, you want a Carlton link, and that's what it's all about, Tone.
Look, on the day of judgment, when you're lined up and you put on the spot about whether or not you're pro or anti-ham, we are so pro. There is no doubt about where we stand on pork products here. Now, Tone, how's the break been?
Well, it's been a terrific break, Tone, although it's fair to say these days, that with AFLW, there's no definitive off-season anymore. The seasons seem to run into each other. And look, it's been fantastic to see the renaissance of the Carlton AFLW team under Coach Harford's watch.
Yep.
And what a magnificent lead into the season proper with the men's. That we've now got the women's team, having finished stone motherless last year, actually contesting finals, having earned the right to get there by knocking over the reigning premiers. So I just think that's a magnificent performance by the AFLW team, and it really sets the tone for what we hope is a really successful year for the club in totality.
Exactly, that's a very good way of putting it. We will be previewing the AFLW prelim final later on in the podcast, Tone. I want to talk to you now about things that happened, football related in the off-season. Let's talk about the Jlt Series. I don't know how much of that you caught. The AFL took the show on the road. I think it's a fantastic idea. It's great for fans who are not in Melbourne to actually get to see players up close and personal. I say that as somebody who grew up in Mildura. So standing next to Warren Jones when I was a kid was one of the most defining and exciting moments of my life, just quietly, at the Mildura Showgrounds.
Well, yeah, that's a great memory you have. And I didn't get to Morwell to see the Collingwood game, but I was fortunate enough to see both the Hawthorn and the Essendon games. The Hawthorn game, we just weren't ready. In many respects, we're just dusting out the cobwebs, I suppose. But we rebounded pretty solidly against Essendon, I thought. And against Collingwood too, I thought there were terrific signs. In both games, I thought we finished off strongly, and that may be the influence of Andrew Russell, the new high-performance manager here from Hawthorn.
Yep.
So, on that score alone, you'd be pretty buoyed and pretty confident that if the whips are cracking late in games this year, that we're going to be thereabouts. And so I think the boys are cherry ripe to go. But, if you reflect on that particular series, as you said, Tone, the players that you wanted to play well did play well.
That's what's so heartening about the last couple of weeks, and that has contributed, I think, Tone, to it's palpable that there is, and it's a pretty easy thing to say in March every year, but I think there is something different about this year. There might be the Sam Walsh factor, but there just seems a lot more depth and a lot more excitement amongst supporters about round one and about our prospects in 2019.
You're right, and look, when you reflect on that and the all-time record membership,
yes.
Now what that tells me is that all the members have actually bought into the narrative, and they understand that yes, this has been a journey. It's an ongoing journey, but we're starting to make real inroads, and I think what's exciting as a Carlton member supporter is that you're actually seeing, the future of Carlton played out in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
That these players, Walsh is the obvious one, but these players now that have got 3 or 4 years under their under the belt, Petrescu, Seaton, Dow, Cripps, is leading the way now.
Yeah.
All these young players are really starting to emerge, and they are the players to take Carlton forward. And the other, probably the unsung hero, I think, in this period has been the ruckman Andrew Phillips, because with Cruiser unavailable, the knock on Phillips was always about his body. He seemed to be constantly breaking down and not able to get to the line in games. He seems to be right now, and I tell you what, I was very impressed with his game on Grundy at Morwell. I thought he started a bit slowly, but as the game went on, he really started to impose himself. And for him to give Cripps first use of the footy, I mean, it was. If he stands up, I think he's a recruit for the Carlton club. Then you get players like McGovern. That's obviously a little underdone, but an important figure up forward. Harry Mackay, Charlie Curnow, again, getting more games under their belt.
Can we talk about SBS and his pre-season? He didn't have one last year, did he? As far as I know, but this is like the first kind of full pre-season that he's had. His touch, from what I've seen in the couple of games I've seen him play in JLT, he just looks in sublime form.
Sublime was the word, and he's really imposing himself on games, and he's being busy in games. It's just and it's lovely to see the way he moves. He's a glorious mover. And these are the players that, as I said, you want to see playing well for Carlton, because these are the players who are going to take Carlton forward. And I think that is what heartens Carlton members most, to see these players really starting to emerge and impose themselves as bona fide league footballers.
And then, of course, there's new players that we're going to see possibly debut on Thursday. Who are you looking forward to there? Well, I mean, it's a good problem to have. I'd say, for the match committee. Very
true, Tone. Well, I suppose Walsh is the obvious one. Everyone's talking him up, and I mean, he's hardly put a foot wrong since he came to Carlton, and you'd expect that he's going to be there. Then you've got other players around the mark like Gibbons. Again, a great football story. Fellow that talk about a victory for persistence. A fellow that kept putting his hand up at VFL level and kept getting overlooked. Well, his time has come, and he's embraced it. And
can I just
ask, that's an inspiring story.
I
think it rubs off on all players.
Where is he likely to be played, Gibbons? I mean, we know he can play certainly at VFL level. He's won a couple of BNFs in that league. Where would Bolts put him?
Well, look, I think maybe in the absence of, with the retirement of Matthew Wright, that maybe he's a smart player. So maybe you want him, up front, maybe at the feet of Charlie or Harry Mackay, whoever it is. I'd imagine there'd be a chance where he's rotated through the midfield as well. When you think about that goal kicking forward, the player that I've neglected to mention that has been very good in this series is Cunningham, because Cunningham's the other one that's bobbed up with some really good goals for the club. And we need contributions on the scoreboard from a lot of players. And I think he's another one that, to me, looks like he's really on the cusp of exploding. And so that's exciting. But it's interesting, Tone. There's, McGovern, I've mentioned Walsh, Gibbons.
Setterfield.
Setterfield's another
exciting
one, another player. All on the cusp of senior selection. Now, whoever makes his debut for Carlton this week, and it's calculated in alphabetical order, the first of them becomes the 1200th Carlton player to complete his senior debut.
Yep, so he gets the number 1200.
That's right. So if you work on, say, if there's 4 or 5 debutants, and it goes on alphabetical order, and I suspect if that's the case, you're way up, maybe Gibbons. Fasolo could be thereabouts, who knows? But it'll be from one of those players that becomes the 1200th Carlton player to make his senior debut. So I'd expect there'd be 4 or 5 potential debutants in the mix.
Oh, look, it's going to be exciting whatever happens. And seeing Sam Walsh run out in the number 18 is going to give a lot of Carlton supporters a reason to stand up and scream their heads off. Tone, we have a Twitter handle this year.
Oh.
We are moving into multimedia.
It's rarefied air for us, isn't it?
Well, we are a 2-man content provision team.
Well, I'm still coming to terms with the sheer excitement of Barkly Smokehouse aligning with this magnificent podcast, Tone, and now to have a presence in the Twitter sphere pleases me no end.
It's pretty good. Barkly Smokehouse, they do a Michael Jamison shoulder of ham. It does come pre-wrapped. Yes, and just give it a couple of weeks and it'll come good. They are doing magnificent work and we love them. So if you want to contact us via Twitter, it's as easy as going to, you ready for this, Tone? This is what the kids are using these days. And President Trump. Okay, we're at 2 Tones CFC. 2 Tones at 2 Tones CFC.
Rolls off the tongue.
And we'll endeavour to get back to everyone or read the best tweets out on air because we have new segments on this program this year. I'm very excited. So send in your tweets for us. There will be prize giveaways from Barkly Smokehouse, and that starts from next week.
Can I interrupt, Tone? And if I could refer you back to Jim Canfield.
Please do, because it is episode 1, so the
Jim Canfield episode. And I did say off air that as a rule, we've tended to crown episode 1 traditionally as episode Silvani, which is very unfair to James Canfield, 9-game player for Carlton in 1977. Recruited, interestingly enough, Tone, from St Vincent's, and I queried this with Christian off air earlier on. I'm trying to work out, is it the hospital or is it the boys' home? Where is it? Anyway.
I guess given that he only played 9 games, maybe it could have been from the emergency room there.
Well, it could well have been. He made his senior debut the same day as Peter Bedford, the South Melbourne Brownlow medalist in 1970 that crossed to Carlton. And interestingly enough, looking at his last game of that year, round 21, 1977, Carlton v Richmond at the MCG. Now, Richmond got up in a nail-biter by 3 points. Swan Mackay kicked 5 for Carlton in that game. And I'll just read the reports that surfaced from that particular contest, Tony.
Yes, please.
In Barm, Richmond, by field umpire Case Smith on a charge...
No, you're not telling me Neil Barm thumped a bloke.
On a charge of deliberately spitting...
What?
...in the face of R. Ashman Carlton in the third quarter, for which he was promptly suspended for 2 matches. And N. Roberts, which I think was Neville Roberts, Richmond by field umpire B. Della on a charge of deliberately striking A. Jesselenko, Carlton, with a clenched right fist to the stomach in the last quarter. Reprimanded. So, fair to say there's no love lost between the 2 teams of Carlton and Richmond, Tony, and N. Barm will be probably somewhere in the Richmond race, I dare say, come game time this Thursday night. And but just to level the scores, our Walls will be hovering in the shadows of the Carlton race now that he's back in tow with the Coaches Brains Trust this year.
Which is a great idea, just quietly,
Very good.
and great to
Very
have
good.
Wolsey on board. Well, thank you for that. And what the policy this year going forward will be to get the more off-Broadway players, I guess, and shine the light on them. So stay tuned for next week for a player who wore the number 2 Guernsey, not necessarily with distinction, but gave it his all nonetheless.
No doubt.
Tone, we have a quick fire question round now.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we do. It's right there on the running order, Tone. Now,
Okay, I'm quite taken by the depth and breadth of the running sheet. It's full on, isn't it? It's magnificent to have so much material to work with, Tone. But
we have back office staff
Yeah, I know,
now.
I
It's
know
not
that,
like
I know that.
Lucy last year. She's done her ACL. She was out training with Doc, and she
Yes.
just keeled over, and that's it. She's out for the season. So now Christian's on board, and I tell you, this is a proper podcast home. We have a Twitter tag. We have a sponsor. All right, now the first pick in the schoolyard. Who do you pick, Cripps or Martin? You're asking me that question, actually.
Well, is that a question that necessarily justifies an answer? I would have presumed it's a given.
Well, how about we speculate as to who's going to play the better game on Thursday?
Well, look, if you go on JLT form, I tell you, Cripps is flying.
And XFL form as well.
Well, that's true. It was lovely to see the place kick reintroduced there, Tony.
Yeah.
I have recently caught up with the last man, prior to Cripps, of course, to kick a place kick in league football, and that was Tony Ongarello at Brunswick Street, I think in the late 50s.
Yep.
Opted
Just
for the
explain
place
to us
kick.
how place kick worked in VFL, Tone.
Well, a place kick, interestingly enough, is still a legal kick. So if a player wanted to take a place kick in a premiership game for 4 points at AFL level, he could. Obviously, the issue is that the umpire could call for the game to hurry on.
Yeah.
So a player would have limited time to do it. But I think what we saw in AFLX was, and I can't remember who the player was now, that it might have been Jack Revo, I think.
Yeah.
Held the ball
being told, yes.
in place with his finger
No.
to allow Cripps to fire off the kick straight through the middle. I remember Dennis Armfield, he came from a rugby background. I often tried to convince him, look, if you get a chance, Den, what about a place kick,
Yeah.
He never did, of course, but he always said to me that he thought that the place kick was more reliable for him than the drop punt, which is really, really
Wow,
interesting. He seemed to
okay.
have. He said he had more control with the place kick than he did the drop punt. So, but we never saw it. But getting back to the question, if you look at Cripps's form through that period of time, and you have to take this into account too, Tone. He was appointed a joint captain with the Doc, and first time ever in the history of the Carlton Football Club. And, of course, as was the case when Murph broke down, Doc broke down, and Cripps has had to take the mantle again. And, I remember hearing players that played under Nichols, through the 60s, early 70s, they would say, gee, when you're heading out down the race into a game of football, you always sort of, have this air of confidence running out behind Big Nick.
Yeah.
That you knew that there was a player you'd run out to battle for. And I really do think that is how it is with Cripps. He's a man beast, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I think to have him with you, heading out into the MCG, it must make all the players walk tall in his presence. And, it was an inspired move, I think, to appoint Patrick Cripps captain. Mind you, I think he made a compelling argument. He's been such a great player for Carlton in the years since he came to the club, and how he got through to number 13 the draft is beyond me. I'll never know.
It could be a flawed system. Anyway, we could say heavy as the crown, but I think Cripper will wear it lightly because he's just a once-in-a-generation player. We're a massive fan of him on this particular podcast. Tone, the 666 rules, to some, the number of the beast. But we saw this. Well, we saw this in the JLT match. I mean, from my limited understanding of it, it basically resulted in a lot of bombing.
Yes.
But can you explain to anybody who doesn't know what the 666 rule is? Can you give us a thumbnail and how it might affect Thursday night? I know it's at the. My understanding is it's at the bounce and players. Let's say quarantined into zones of the ground.
Correct.
And you can't cross over free kickers awarded
that's
if you don't.
essentially so. And I think what it's designed to do is open up the game and rid the game as best as it possibly can of congestion.
Yep.
So look, you'd have to give credit to Hawking for courage of conviction. I mean, if you think about the AFL, they were, there's always this backlash, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, maybe it was broke. Maybe it had to be fixed in this instance, I guess. But people have always sort of been a bit reluctant to change. And it was a fairly seismic call, I think, to make, to introduce a 666 rule. But so far, you'd have to say that it has actually helped the game as a spectacle. It's better to watch. And let's be honest, I think by and large people want to see open, free-flowing football.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from that perspective, what's the thinking here? What's the rationale behind invoking this rule, 666? Well, if you think, it's to open the game and make the game a better spectacle, it's hard to argue, isn't it? It's
Do you get the prospect, let's say, Thursday night sees Phillips to Cripps to Harry Mackay on the burst, after a laser-like 50-metre pass or whatever you want to... And then you've got a goal then in under a minute from a centre bounce. TV stations are going to love that.
They're going to love it.
Crowds are going to love it. Is that a prospect, do you think?
I think it is, and you talk about those players at the break, getting first use of the footy out of the midfield. And you think about those mobile forwards too that have got maybe space to run. Like, it's an appetising thought. Curnow at one end and then probably, Tom Lynch if he plays at the other. Both athletic big men, And I mean, Harry Mackay, there's the other thing. Harry Mackay... one little knock I've had on him is that the games I've seen him play, he seems to be have this propensity more to participate in the pack mark situation.
Yeah.
But he's such an athletic big man that I'd love to see him, heading out of the square on the lead.
Yeah.
And the players putting the ball out in front of him, because he to me is a bit like Nick Revolt in the sense that his mobility for a big man means he's a very, very difficult player to match up on.
Yeah.
And I think a player like that, if he's leading out, he's probably going to find things a lot easier than having to contest with 5 or 6 other players overhead. And we look at sort of what's going on at St Kilda with Paddy McCartan, and the knocks that he's got, just from contesting those pack situations. You have to, be a little bit more careful, and I think life could be easier for Big Harry if he brought that, aspect to his game. Maybe that comes with time, but it's just a little observation I've made. I'd love to see him lead out more often than he has done. Look, he's still learning.
You're not alone there, Tone. You are not alone. Now, we have, this is one of the brand new segments. This is, of course, episode 1 of the Two Tones of 2019 with Tony de Bolfo and myself, Tony Moclair. The new segment is simply called, Tone, Got a Minute, Lad.
You got a minute, lad?
Well, Tone, I've got a million minutes, to be truthful, because the backstory to this is that when I first started back at Carlton, I remember one of the first things I did was to go on a stroll of the old ground, as you do, and I remember getting a key to one of the old hot dog stands of all places on the concourse on the first level in the Pratt stand. I went in there and had a look, and there were all these dusty cardboard boxes, and there was a cardboard box in there and all these heavily bound volumes sitting in the cardboard box.
It looks like a textbook from Hogwarts.
It does, doesn't it?
Really does.
I grabbed one of them out and found them to be the minutes of the Carlton Football Club annual committee meetings from as far back as Jack Worrell's time in 1906.
Wow.
And what these minutes offer is a fascinating insight into the stories behind the story that happened at Carlton, from the important to the absolute trivial. There's some bizarre entries in here. But,
can I just point out, Tone, I mean, you might think these are typed up by, Miss Wilson in the typing pool. They're not. They're handwritten.
Handwritten, glorious pen and ink here, Tone. And can I just share a little minute from April 27th, 1926, in respect of the then coach of the day, Jim Caldwell.
Yeah.
And it turns out that on the eve of the 26th season, it was discovered that Mr. Caldwell had been negotiating for the position of coach to a country club, which in fact, and I'm trying to find the club now, I haven't got it handy here.
Was it like a country, some deep rural club like Preston?
No. It was out in the sticks. Ah, here you go, Rutherglen.
Rutherglen, okay, there you go.
Rutherglen. So can you imagine this? This is on the cusp of the 26th season. Carlton suddenly finds that its coach is on the radar of what did I say it was? The
Rutherglen.
Rutherglen club.
So this is a coach poach scandal.
And it was, and it absolutely invoked a crisis here. Players were called into the committee meeting, one of which was the great Horry Clover, and Clover's comments are recounted here in the minutes, where they've asked him his thoughts, and he said, Mr. Clover considered that the coach should be a teacher and should give individual instruction to players who required it, and was of the opinion that the players were not coached either last year or this year.
Ooh.
So I suspect that Jim Caldwell's papers were pretty much stamped once the players decided that he wasn't the man for the job. So on the eve of the 26th season, Ray Brew, who was, I think from St Joseph's, North Melbourne, an old boy there, and went to Newman College, was suddenly thrown in the position of captain coach. So these were not happy times on the start at the start of the season, Tone. But as I closed the dust-covered minutes of the end of the reports of 26, I'm glad to say that we are, as of 2019, round one, a happy club, and let's hope that continues.
It's only taken 93 years, Tone. That was the new segment, Got a Minute, Lad. Now, Tone, a game preview Thursday night at the MCG. It is round one of season 29 for the AFL. This is, a traditional round one fixture now. Carlton v Richmond. Richmond, of course, are only as good as their last game, which, as we know, involved losing to Collingwood in the preliminary final. Collingwood then went on to lose the grand final. From a Carlton supporter, those two losses are just as sweet as they get, just quietly. Now, let's preview the game on Thursday night. What do you reckon?
Well, look, we both clubs go into the season proper with a fair degree of optimism, and it's probably fair to say that Richmond is in a different space to where Carlton is right now, and yet the expectations of both clubs are enormous. Richmond, I suppose, in many respects, you know what you're getting. I mean, they're not so long ago premiers, and obviously they would have been hurting after, the exit from the series last year.
Yeah.
Carlton, of course, there's this enormous expectation on the kids. How are the kids going to hold up? How far have those third and fourth year players progressed? Can the form that they've shown in these scratch matches hold up under cut and thrust of senior AFL footy, premiership points? It's like a final. It's a final Thursday night. There'll be 90,000 there. Weather's going to be good. So what an occasion for our players, particularly those new to Carlton. Look, you can only go on pre-season form, and Carlton's pre-season form, to my way of thinking, has been sound.
Yep.
We'll get a better understanding when the whips are cracking Thursday night. But I expect Carlton to acquit themselves well in this context, and I do think that the club may surprise a lot of people this year, and the players, might really start to to emerge. You know, it's the great unknown, isn't it, Tone? When is this going to happen? How quickly will it happen? Well, I think now maybe we'll start to see, you know, the upward curve in the graph, and let's hope it starts Thursday night. It's that's what we all want to see.
Well, I'm all for incautious optimism, Tone, and throwing rationality out the window.
You're tempering my enthusiasm, Tone.
I'm trying to.
You always were a killjoy.
No, I'm quite the opposite. I'm all for being just insanely optimistic. The big three that Carlton would obviously have to look at stopping: Riewoldt, Lynch and Dusty. Who do we put on them to nullify them?
Well, Martin, it'll be interesting. I think the issue with Martin, more for me, has always been when he's gone forward.
Yeah.
We've seemed to have struggled to find anyone capable of curbing him, you know, one-on-one up front. Now, it'll be interesting to see if that happens now if Lynch plays, you know, because that's going to change the dynamic completely. In answer to your question, I don't know whether Bolton will look to tag Martin.
Yeah.
He might say, well, look, we'll back our bloke in. Maybe
Ed Kerner.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe Ed Kerner gets the gig for that. Lynch, I think, was the other player you mentioned. Well, was that right?
He smashed us in a couple of games, I remember, in the last couple of years.
Well, probably I think the man there is Liam Jones. So I think if Liam Jones... And his form's been pretty good, JLT. He took a lot of marks and got in the right places in the games that I saw, would be playing with a fair degree of confidence. And you're right, you know, Tom Lynch has given Carlton enormous grief in recent years. So if he was to line up, he's got to be manned up pretty closely. And the third was Jack.
Riewoldt,
Jack Riewoldt. Well, again, that's going to be an interesting matchup. Hard to say who might get the gig there. You know, I suppose you've got players that are capable of, you know, fronting up, forward, heading back. They might look at McGovern. You know, maybe McGovern's an option there. You know, it's hard to know. It's with the matchups who's going to man up on who. I guess we find out Thursday night. Really, it's. I can't offer you too much more than that. It's,
no. Well, look, the Carlton faithful, like I said, there's something in the air. There is an expectation. There's a lot more hope, I think, than there has been in the last couple of years. It's going to result in a very animated crowd on Thursday night.
Yes.
I hope at least half, or 45,000 people there, are wearing the dark navy blue.
Yes.
And screaming Carlton on to what I truly hope is going to be one of the great victories of the Carlton Football Club.
And then, you know, leading into the Carlton Fremantle AFLW game here Saturday.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if we got over the line, the blokes got over the line Thursday night, how big would that be here Saturday?
The joint would be jumping, there's no doubt about that. Now, Tone, one of the major things about Thursday night is former captain Mark Murphy notches up an incredible milestone for a player, it has to be said.
What an incredible milestone, and what a tribute to durability.
Yeah.
You know, a fellow, gee whiz, 250 games. How many years as captain? Probably 6 seasons, 5 seasons, 6 as captain. And there'd be few players in Carlton history that would have captained the team under more adverse circumstances than Mark Murphy.
That's true.
And notwithstanding the leadership, the fact that on the field he's had to, you know, he's been battered and, you know, bashed. But I think what's happened, Tone, I was in the very fortunate situation of recently interviewing Stephen Kernahan, Chris Judd, and also being party to a little conversation that Murph had with Koutafidis.
Yeah. And
it was fascinating to hear their tributes to Mark Murphy, and to a man, all of them, I guess, declared that Murphy was the player that always got up.
Yeah.
You know, knock him down, you know, kneecap him, do whatever you want. He always got up, and he never complained, and has really had to do it the hard way. And I think what's great about Mark Murphy, I think for him, I think, you know, in many respects, best days are ahead. You know, he's relinquished the captaincy, which is a magnanimous thing to do.
It's no easy thing to do.
No easy thing to do, and showed loyalty to stay at the club too, when it would have been quite understandable for him to look elsewhere, further his career. because at the end of the day, you think that players play the game to play in premierships, but he resolved to stay with the club because he believed in the club and where it was heading. And I think now that the constraints of the captaincy have been taken from him, he's had a great pre-season. You've got other players now shouldering the workload in midfield. I think he has a capability to be a really, really good player for Carlton, an even better player.
Is he confident? Is he confident in his body, because he has been carrying chronic, niggling injuries over the last couple of years that have inhibited his play. He's also had not a lot of protection in the midfield, and he's had the burden of the captaincy. So I think you make a great point there, Tone. Freed of a lot of that, and with the body right, we're going to see hopefully a return. And we see plenty of it, but hopefully a lot more of it this year, of that absolute deftness of touch that's his signature.
Very true, Tony, and the mind's right too. The mindset's positive. He's a settled man. He's a married man. He's a father. Yeah. So everything is right in the world for him right now, and I think that will really reflect on the way he plays. I reckon the Mark Murphy model 2019 is a player you're going to see play with real freedom and almost a liberated player, I believe, and that's got to be a good thing for Carlton. 3 more seasons will get him to 300. I think he'll get there. Touch wood. Yep. Body holds up well, and hopefully there'll be successes along the way for Mark Murphy, which he truly deserves for the adversary that he's had to endure, through these seasons that he's been at the club.
Could not agree more. Congratulations to Mark Murphy, wearing the number 3 with pride, and game 250. That is just a magnificent accomplishment, however you cut it. Now, Tone, we have yet another new segment on the two tones for 2019.
We're not getting carried away, Tone. We're taking it one segment at a time.
I'm sure that cliche was in that book from 1926. There we go. We have a new segment. Christian, over to you.
Thanks, Tone. Thanks for having me on. Well, it has all come around again. Carlton hosts Richmond this Thursday night at the MCG, with a capacity crowd of over 80,000 expected. We know how big it is, we've seen it before, so make sure you feel the MCG navy blue in this blockbuster between two traditional rivals. You can purchase your tickets on ticketek.com.au to avoid disappointment. It's a special game for the club, with Mark Murphy to become the 13th player to play 250 games for Carlton. You can commemorate the special occasion thanks to the Carlton shop. Teas, mugs, can coolers and badges. Beast, I'm not sure what more you could want. They'll be available at the MCG on Thursday night as well. Thursday's a big night, and on Saturday it's all happening again, this time at Icon Park. It's the biggest game in the club's short AFLW history, with the Blues to host Fremantle from 2:45pm on Saturday. Entry is free, so get down and support the girls as they play for a spot in the grand final. Finally, the biggest Bound by Blue thank you ends on Thursday night at 7:19pm, 1 whole minute before the season opener. Make sure you're getting quick to get your free membership upgrade and ensure you're Bound by Blue in 2019.
Indeed. Well said, Christian.
Beautifully done.
That is Christian with his new weekly segment, Club News, basically. Club News.
I think he deserves a Barkly Smokehouse ham for that performance, Tone,
I think we can organise one or two. We've got a bit of pull at that establishment these days, Tone.
I don't know about pull. I want is the pork. Or maybe I could get some pulled pork.
There you go.
Sounds good to me. And one of those lovely Vietnamese buns, Tone.
Oh, yeah, if you don't mind. Stop it. Eat one in celebration of Thursday night's magnificent victory, Tone. Speaking of victory, now Christian touched on this. The AFLW prelim final, there is a culture and a spirit amongst the group. They have brought, the feeling of winning back to Icon Park.
They have indeed, Tony. You've got to give credit to Coach Harford for this.
Yeah.
He's inherited a team that was, last... wasn't a happy place. We talked about how things are so upbeat here with the men. Well, it wasn't so long ago that it was a bit grim. With the AFLW team, and just goes to show how quickly things can turn. I think Harford's given his girls license to really take the game on, and but I think he's brought that real team first component to the team, and you can see in the way they play for each other. And I just think watching the AFL women's team go about their business, they're so committed. And as I say, they play as one, and Look, it's the challenges are really going to present themselves now. Fremantle have been a really impressive team right through the course of this year's competition. But who knows? We've got them at home. If we can get over that, the feeling of confidence that will permeate through the rooms is going to be palpable for the girls. And to me, they look like they're women on a mission. And it's just great to see the way that they go about their business. And all power to them Saturday against the Dockers here at home. And as I said earlier, if we get up Thursday night and the weather's good, it'd be great to see this place again filled to the rafters.
Absolutely.
The old Carlton bastion.
Yes, the Robert Heatley stand shaking, and lots of noise being made. We want the rising tide to make all boats rise equally.
Oh yes,
don't we?
Oh yeah, most,
you know what
most
I'm
definitely.
saying.
I know what you're saying, Toad.
Well, Tone, that's enough for us for episode 1 of the Two Tones for 2019.
That's disappointing. I was rather hoping there was another segment.
Well, we may be cramming a few more. Look, this is a work in progress, Tone, but I think we've done very well with our new segments. Just to remind you, our Twitter handle is @TwoTonesCFC. So chat to us online and
tweet away.
We'll tweet away and we'll read out the best tweets for next week. And keeping in mind that the best tweets get a giveaway from Barkly Smokehouse, our new sponsor. We love their work. We will, of course, be back next week. Thanks to all the back office staff here at the Two Tones.
Yes, to Christian and Damon. A job well done, boys. We've emerged from episode Canfield unscathed. Well done.
All right. And we will return for episode 2, hopefully dissecting what has been a momentous victory, or we certainly will settle for an honourable loss. Nonetheless, let's give Neil Baum a reason to swear for the entire drive home.
Absolutely, Tone. See you at the G.
Good on you, Tone. Thanks for that. This has been the Two Tones. We'll catch you next week.